Have you ever found yourself standing at the edge of a vast, sun-drenched field, watching 100 different kites dance in the sky? Each one a vibrant splash of color, soaring with effortless grace, catching the perfect current. And then a quiet whisper begins in your mind, asking why your own kite feels tethered to the ground, its colors muted, its string tangled. Why do their kites climb so high, their shapes so bold, while yours remains, stubbornly, a folded piece of paper in your hand? This insidious comparison, this silent judgment against our own unseen potential, is a common current that pulls many into the shadows of self-doubt. We gaze at the dazzling ascent of others, convinced their sky is brighter, their winds more favorable, and forget that every gust, every updraft, is an invitation, not a competition. Our story begins in the bustling, ancient city of Aethel, a place renowned for its artisans, scholars, and dreamers. Every street hummed with the symphony of creation, the blacksmith's rhythmic hammer, the weaver's intricate shuttle, the philosopher's quiet debates, echoing from sun-dappled courtyards. In the heart of this vibrant tapestry lived a young woman named Lyra. Lyra was a keen observer, her eyes missing nothing, her mind a repository of every intricate detail of Aethel's ceaseless energy. Yet beneath her calm exterior, a constant discord played. Her best friend, Lyra, was a celebrated calligrapher, whose brushstrokes held the wisdom of ages, each character a miniature masterpiece. Her brother, Aethel, possessed an uncanny knack for architecture, his designs transforming ordinary stone into breathtaking structures that seemed to defy gravity. Even the quiet baker down the lane, old Silas, crafted loaves so perfect they were legendary. Lyra admired them all, deeply, genuinely. But this admiration was often swiftly followed by a crushing sense of inadequacy. What was her craft? What was her contribution to Aethel's grand symphony? She felt like a forgotten instrument in an orchestra, unable to find her note, unable to join the harmonious chorus that surrounded her. The question haunted her, a phantom melody she couldn't quite grasp. What is my unique rhythm? This internal conflict grew into a gnawing emptiness. Lyra spent countless hours in the city archives, poring over ancient texts, hoping to stumble upon a forgotten art form, a hidden talent that would miraculously reveal itself. She tried calligraphy, but her hands, usually steady, trembled, and her characters lacked the soul of Lyra's. She sketched architectural designs, but they seemed clumsy and uninspired compared to Aethel's bold visions. She even attempted baking, only to find her bread heavy and unyielding. Each endeavor undertaken with a heavy heart and a mind already predisposed to failure only deepened her conviction that she was a vessel devoid of unique purpose, a page left blank in Aethel's grand epic. The city, once a source of inspiration, began to feel like a colossal mirror reflecting her perceived shortcomings. She saw the brilliance of others and in their light, her own seemed to vanish entirely. One sweltering afternoon, seeking refuge from both the sun and her own thoughts, Lyra wandered into the forgotten quarter of Aethel, a labyrinth of winding alleys and crumbling facades. There, nestled between two ancient, overgrown buildings, was a tiny, unassuming shop overflowing with curiosities. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light filtering through the grimy windows, illuminating shelves packed with strange instruments, faded maps, and forgotten tools. Behind a counter, perched precariously on a stack of leather-bound books, sat an old woman with eyes that sparkled like polished obsidian. Her name was Maeve, and she was known as the Keeper of Whispers, for she spoke little but seemed to understand much. Lyra, drawn by an inexplicable curiosity, found herself confessing her silent struggle, her desire to find her own melody. Maeve listened patiently, her gaze unwavering. When Lyra finished, Maeve simply reached under the counter and pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden box. Every soul has a melody, child, she said, her voice raspy but kind. Some are grand symphonies, some are quiet lullabies. The challenge is not to find the melody, but your melody. It is not found by mimicking the notes of others, but by listening to the silence within yourself. This simple statement, delivered with such gentle conviction, sparked a tiny, almost imperceptible ember of hope in Lyra's heart. Maeve's words weren't a solution, but an invitation to stop looking outward and start listening inward. Inspired by Maeve's enigmatic wisdom, Lyra decided to embark on her own quest for self-discovery, a journey that proved to be anything but straightforward. The echo chamber of emulation, Lyra's first instinct, despite Maeve's counsel, was to try one last time to replicate the success of others. She observed the famed storytellers of Aethel, their voices weaving tales that captivated crowds in the city squares. She diligently studied their cadence, their gestures, their dramatic pauses. She even chose a classic Aethelian legend, a story of a brave warrior and a lost treasure, and practiced recounting it. On a quiet evening, she gathered a small group of children in a dimly lit corner of the market. She began her tale, mimicking the intonations she had so carefully memorized. But her voice felt flat, her words hollow. She watched as the children's eyes, initially wide with anticipation, slowly began to drift, their attention wandering to a juggling street performer. Lyra realized with a pang that she wasn't telling her story. She was performing their story. It lacked the genuine spark, the personal inflection that made a narrative truly come alive. The children, innocent in their honesty, sensed the artifice. It was a disheartening moment, confirming her earlier failures, but it also hammered home Maeve's point. A melody played by another's sheet music can never truly be yours. She packed away her aspirations of being a grand storyteller, not in defeat, but with a new understanding. The echo chamber of emulation only amplified her silence, the lure of external validation. After her storytelling attempt, Lyra, still seeking a tangible worth, decided to pursue something practical and widely admired: city planning. Aethel was a growing city, and new districts were constantly being envisioned. She enrolled in a minor apprenticeship with Kale, her brother, hoping his genius would rub off on her, or at least that she could find a useful niche. She diligently learned the principles of urban design, the geometry of roads, the flow of commerce. Her mind, so adept at observation, grasped the technicalities quickly. She contributed to a minor project, helping to optimize the layout of a new marketplace. Her suggestions, though not revolutionary, were sound and functional. Kale commended her work, and the elders of the guild nodded approvingly. For a brief moment, Lyra felt a surge of pride. She had found something she was good enough at, something that garnered praise. But as the marketplace took shape, perfectly functional yet utterly devoid of the creative flair that made Kale's structures sing, a hollowness settled in. She realized her contribution, while useful, didn't ignite her spirit. It was a well-constructed echo, not an original composition. The validation felt external, a fleeting warmth that quickly dissipated, leaving her questioning, is this truly my melody, or merely a well-tuned imitation? This experience taught her that even success, if born of expectation rather than passion, could feel like an empty chamber. The fear of the uncharted path. Having failed to emulate others and found hollow satisfaction in external validation, Lyra faced the most daunting challenge, confronting the blank canvas of her own unexplored self. The silence Maeve spoke of was terrifying. What if there was nothing there? What if her melody was a discordant squeak, or worse, utter silence? She spent weeks in quiet contemplation, walking the ancient walls of Aethel, observing not with a mind bent on comparison, but with a detached curiosity. She noticed the subtle shifts in light on stone, the intricate patterns of moss growing on forgotten statues, the way different people conversed and connected. She started sketching, not grand architectural plans, but the tiny, often overlooked details of Aethel, the unique knot in a fisherman's net, the laughter lines around a street vendor's eyes, the precise curve of a forgotten gargoyle. These sketches weren't art. They were observations, meditations on the unseen beauty and underlying connections of her city. She found herself meticulously categorizing and cross-referencing these observations, noting how the light affected mood, how a particular flower blossomed only in the shade of a certain wall, how seemingly disparate events were linked by subtle threads. This was not a known craft, not something admired or celebrated in Aethel. It was simply ... and the fear of its insignificance was immense. The turning point came during the annual Festival of Whispers, a time when Aethel celebrated its hidden histories and forgotten tales. Lyra, almost by habit, wandered towards Maeve's shop. Maeve, sensing a shift in Lyra, spoke softly. "What have you found in the silence, child?" Lyra hesitantly pulled out a stack of her observational sketches and meticulously organized notes. She showed Maeve how the old city walls, often seen as mere boundaries, were in fact intricate ecosystems for specific flora and fauna. How the forgotten gargoyles weren't just decorative, but strategically placed to catch the first and last rays of sunlight. How the varied rhythms of daily life in different quarters subtly influenced the local dialects and folklore. Maeve's eyes widened, a rare, genuine smile gracing her lips. "You have seen the threads," she whispered. "You have heard the subtle harmonies," Lyra emboldened, then spoke of her growing realization. Aethel, for all its grand artisans and scholars, lacked someone who saw its underlying connections, its hidden patterns, the way all its disparate elements wove into a living, breathing entity. She wasn't an artisan of form or a scholar of text, but an interpreter of cohesion. She could see the city not as a collection of parts, but as a grand, interconnected system, a living narrative waiting to be understood and translated. She saw how the placement of the blacksmith's forge influenced the local economy, how the old river trade routes shaped the distinct architecture of the riverfront, how the forgotten legends resonated in the city's current festivals. She possessed a unique talent for mapping the unseen web that bound Aethel together. This was her melody, not a loud, boisterous anthem, but a subtle, intricate counterpoint, a bass line that provided depth and context to the louder instruments. It wasn't a talent anyone had explicitly asked for, nor was it something she could easily compare to Alara's calligraphy or Kale's architecture, but it was profoundly hers. With Maeve's quiet encouragement, Lyra began to compile her observations, creating detailed maps of connection, scrolls that charted not just streets and buildings, but the ecological flows, the cultural currents, the historical echoes, and the social interdependencies of Aethel. These weren't maps for navigation, but for understanding. Initially, people were perplexed, but slowly, scholars found her insights invaluable for understanding Aethel's past, and city planners, even Kale, began to consult her for understanding the holistic impact of their designs. Old Silas, the baker, even discovered through Lyra's maps that a particular strain of wheat grew best near certain ancient water veins, improving his legendary loaves. Lyra had found her unique instrument, not by seeking to play like others, but by listening to the silent, unwritten score that only she could perceive. The true richness of life, you see, does not lie in mirroring the achievements of others, nor in desperately trying to fit into a mold that was never designed for you. It resides profoundly and beautifully in the brave act of unearthing your own authentic note, of discovering your unique contribution to the grand, interconnected symphony of existence. Every tree in a forest contributes to the ecosystem, not by trying to grow apples when it's a pine, but by being the best pine it can be. Every color in a painting adds to the masterpiece, not by wishing it were another hue, but by embracing its own vibrancy. Your worth is not determined by how brightly you shine in someone else's sky, but by the light you uniquely cast, the melody only you can play. This discovery, this embrace of self, is not a destination, but a continuous journey of listening, observing, and courageously manifesting that which is inherently beautifully you. So I invite you now to put down the folded kite of comparison. Take a moment, a deep, resonant breath. Quiet the external noise. Listen. What subtle whispers does your soul hold? What unique patterns do your eyes perceive? What unwritten melody is waiting for you to find its rhythm and bring it into the world? Your contribution, your authentic self, is not just valuable. It is essential for the completeness and harmony of our collective experience. Find your unique rhythm and let your unwritten melody begin.